Man, that was a nice intro, man. When did you
Sorry,
redo that?
sorry about that. I got bored yesterday.
No.
Yeah, I was
Out
editing
of
some
boredom
videos, and I
comes
was like, you know what? Let
greatness.
me let me edit this thing and see if I can change it a little bit. So I played with it for a little bit.
No, no, man. It looked great, man. Out of boredom comes greatness is what I tell my kids, right? Dad, I'm bored.
Right.
That's a good thing. Pull out
Or
your
shenanigans.
green logbook or something like that and start writing some stuff down, and you'll be all right, kid. You'll be all right.
Yeah,
My best ideas are born out of when I'm bored.
I used to get in trouble when I was bored. So, Navy Cap, good morning.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, sir. Good morning to you.
All right, all right. Navy cop, good morning. Here we go. Uh, so, John, I got to tell you, man, where's my stuff? Here it is. So, this past week, I decided I was going to go a little bit more analog, if you will.
Hmm.
So, I was looking at one of these dumb phones, right? And then I started looking at flip phones because I did find that I was using my stuff way too much. If it wasn't for, updating the military retirement group stuff, for just social media stuff that we get involved in with the podcast, with the Green Logbook, YouTube, and stuff, then I probably would have a flip phone because I just hate the idea of constantly being on the phone at all times, right? Just it's a time suck. So I got to thinking, I'm like, okay, well, I really don't want to like just kind of toss my iPhone. I got this iPhone Pro or whatever, and I thought, what kind of apps are there for this? And so I went online or on the App Store, and I actually downloaded this one, and it makes that's all the apps I have right there.
Okay,
So that, and then this guy right there. So of course YouTube
nice.
Studio is on there. I can't let it go yet, right? But very, very simple. That's all I need. And I found that I am not grabbing my phone. I'm not going for my phone at all, really. Because it's like, unless I needed to, unless I don't have Facebook or anything on my phone, like not Instagram, anything. If I need to check that stuff, I'll just log on to the computer at certain hours of the day to check it. I don't want to be constantly going on it all the time. It's such a time suck, but I've been able to do a lot more in this past week than I think I have in the last couple months. I've been able to read some stuff, write some more stuff, come up with ideas, play with Chat GPT, just learn about new prompts and things like that we can use for the podcast, for other like counseling businesses that I'm trying to do, or the coaching business and stuff. But it's so good, man. It's like a breath of fresh air, dude. It really is. Like looking at it, it's monotone or monochrome. It's just black and white, couple little apps. That's all I need. That's all I want, really. I don't know if I want to go back to that thing, to all
Yeah, I
the
was just
apps.
actually watching the latest two episodes of Tim Ferriss podcast, and I
Yep.
forget the guy's name now, but the guy is on there, and you might actually be really, really interesting for you because you could revisit some Japanese stuff. The guy lives in Japan.
Oh, nice.
He's a creator. He's an author. He's a filmmaker and a photographer. But he talks about an app that you can get that'll basically shut. It's probably the same kind of app that'll shut
Mhm.
off like all the apps on your phone and lock it down so you can only use a certain amount of apps and you choose
Yeah.
which ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
it does definitely has its merits to step away from it because he uses it for going on really, really long walks on some of those trails throughout Japan. He'll go on like a
Right.
week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks at a time. And he takes his phone with him just so he has his GPS still, but he shuts off all the apps so he's not like on social media or doing any checking emails or anything silly like that.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's kind of similar to what that Marie Kondo does with, if you don't
Yep.
love it, get rid of it. And I mean, the minimalists talk about it as well. Like if you don't love it, if you haven't used it in like the last 3 months, you might want to just get rid of it. And if you need it again, go out and get it again, right? How hard is it to re-download an app? It's not that hard.
No.
So I got rid of a ton of stuff. I still have Facebook in the background if I need it, but if it's not, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. If I don't see it there staring at me, I'm not going to click on it. If I don't see Instagram, I'm not that I'm huge on Instagram or anything. Like I'm just
Right.
there just to scroll and see like military stuff. Um, but it is a time suck because you're constantly scrolling, 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 right? So Anyway, for anybody listening out there, if you want to regain your time again and get that back, that's probably one of the good ones here. I think what's the name of the app? I don't even know. It's Minimal Phone Launcher. That's all it is. Minimal Phone Launcher. So what
Yeah,
else
and
is
shout out again to I was gonna say shout out again
okay?
to Navy Cop.
Got
We started our journey on the Operation Headshot the other day and did our first sit down community chat with everybody and intros and
awesome.
all that stuff. It's a 6-month
Tell me about that.
program. I think it's going to be really, really, really good. We get to learn about cameras. We get to learn about lighting. We get to learn about composition. We get to learn about editing. And we also get to learn about setting up a website. If you want to start your own business, photography business, if you want to do portraits, if you want to do landscape photography, like all that stuff's embedded in it. This is the last cohort that they're going to do. It's 6 months long. I think it's like once every 2 weeks we'll get like a little video, and then once a month we'll do an all together call with everybody. So far, so good. I really was surprised when Navy Cop was doing his intro in the call, and he was like, "Yeah, I watched this podcast, and there's these guys, John and Vic, are on there, and this is why I'm here, and this is how I found you guys." And I was like, "Whoa!" So shout out to
Something's
Navy
happening.
Cop. Yeah, shout out to
Awesome,
Navy
man.
Cop.
So what is the program? Are you actually the photographer? You get assigned to take headshots of different people around different places, or how's that work?
It's basically walks you through from beginning to end, what cameras are, what lighting is, how to use a camera, all the stuff that's involved with
Mhm.
cameras, what different kinds of cameras there are, what kind of camera sensors there are. And I would love to get into the nerdy weeds of this today, but I might have to pull myself back and hope and restrain myself from getting too nerdy today. But basically, it gives you all the tools you need. It's veteran owned business, nonprofit,
Mhm.
and they bring veterans and spouses together to do this stuff. People who want to learn about photography, and you basically just get all the tools you need to if you wanted to start your own photography business. Again, whether it's doing headshots, if you want to do wedding photography, any kind of photography stuff. I think maybe in the
Right.
future they're thinking about doing some video as well because of
Mhm.
things like this podcasts. If you want to do some short form video and stuff,
Yeah.
also really great. But it's a great veteran community. It gives you a little bit of purpose if you're looking for purpose, and it gives you a great hobby that you could then turn into a business potentially.
Mm. Very cool. Very cool. So how'd you get involved with that?
I found them at Mick out at the Military Influencer Conference last year. Talked to the guys,
Oh yeah, that's right. You
and
mentioned that.
yeah, we had a good conversation. I was really interested. They said they had a cohort coming up, so I've just been waiting and waiting and waiting for that to start off again. It's been a while, so it finally started. 6 months, so from I guess now until the end of the year, almost around August,
Mhm.
September, somewhere around there is when we'll be done. Yeah, I think it's going to be really cool. I'm really excited to not only to learn a little bit more, but also to be able to share ideas. I mean, even the conversation we had at the end of the call when we did some Q&A stuff and we started talking about lenses and things like that. And if you want to do a shoot, like what do you actually need? What kind of camera gear you need and stuff like that. We kind of jumped the gun a little bit, but I feel
Yeah.
like it's really a good community to be in. Plus, it expands my network that we keep talking about.
Yeah.
Met some really cool people in there that I think I can link up with, and even potentially some podcast guests to bring on to talk about stuff that they're doing. So
Hell yeah, man. It's all about networking, getting out there, right? That's awesome, man. And it's a camera thing. I brought my Fuji film here just in case. So not that
nice,
it's anything special, but it's old
nice,
school.
nice.
And yeah, I just recently let my kid use it for the yearbook club and all that stuff. And he's like, "Dad, this is amazing. All the stuff is on the top. You don't even have to go inside of it." And I'm like, "It's great. Fujifilm's awesome, man. I'm a big fan." But all right, so along with that, I know we want to geek out on the film stuff and the photo stuff too, and I'm a big fan of that myself. I've gone through many iterations of different cameras and over the years, and I got my little DJI here, use it for like filmmaking stuff. Not that it's anything professional or anything like that, but it's just fun to use. but I do want to bring on an old friend, a former Marine, and well, once a Marine, always a Marine, right? So a Marine, and you know, author, deploy had he's been through deployments, just all around awesome dude, and I can't wait to hear his story. Mr. Omar Portilla. Hey, welcome to the Military Retirement Podcast, Omar.
Thank you guys for having me.
What's up,
Oh,
brother?
it's awesome,
What's
man.
going
It's
on?
awesome. Dude, where are you sitting? Are you in a studio?
So
What's all
I'm in
that behind you?
my home office. As I was talking to John earlier, I have my home office. I used to have a studio where like I had all my
Mhm.
equipment, but then I kind of got more behind the scenes, like producing and writing and directing. So you don't really need a studio for that. So I kind of gave it up to save some money, and now for my productions, I edit downstairs in my basement. So this is kind of like my office. My monitors where I actually do my editing is right behind you for camera.
Mhm.
There's some of my
Mhm.
equipment. I got some lenses back there, some lights over here, some geeking stuff. So it's kind of like my
Yeah.
basement office where I do most of my editing and stuff.
Hell yeah, I like it. My office is like the reverse, right? Because my wife also uses this space for like teleworking or whatever. So all the
Okay.
stuff is here.
Right, right, right,
You can't see it, but all the stuff back here looks like I got my crap together, right? But I
right.
don't.
Very clean. When I turned on the camera, I was like, man, this room is definitely not conducive to video. It's more like
No, no, it's all
just to
good, man.
work.
It shows, your work. It shows what you love to do, man. Like I'm looking at back there, I'm looking at the lenses, I'm looking at all this stuff, and it really shows that you're involved in what you like to do, man. So
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
you
I'm
gotta
not
be.
involved into anything. So man, yeah. So Omar, man, it's been a minute. So we served together in Camp Pendleton. I know we were talking offline a little bit, off camera a little bit. We served together in Camp Pendleton. That's when I first met you, right? I was a
Right.
young, bright-eyed, bushy-tail, PFC, didn't know what the hell was going on. I recall my first day when I checked in, after checking in at whatever, the Joint Reception Center. I was brought to the barracks and introduced to my room, right? And at that point
Right.
in time, everybody was standing outside on the catwalk on the barracks, at the barracks on the, I think it was second deck or third deck, I can't recall. And people were bringing their wall lockers and their beds out to the catwalk because it was a field day, right?
Right.
Because somebody was mad
Hmm.
at whatever happened. And I had asked, and I believe it was Leggett. You recall Leggett, I think,
Yeah.
from back in the day. And I asked him, "Can I get out of my alphas? Can I take off my uniform?" And he's like, "Hell no! Start moving wall lockers." And I'm like,
Feels
"Good to
about
go."
right.
Yeah, I was a PFC, good to go. And I'm moving wall lockers out to the catwalk as a PFC, not knowing who is who. Like this is my first introduction to the Marine Corps, right? Getting dropped off, and then it just got better from there. It really did. I mean, that's like
Right.
you hit rock bottom right there, and you're like, who are these people? Who I don't know who my roommate is. Is this my room? Let me put my seat back down on the floor. But yeah, I mean, and then I got introduced to you, and then we kind of had the same kind of group that had we'd hang
Right.
out with,
Right.
go out to eat every so often. So that was really cool. And I recall, you when I was, I think probably a PFC Lance Corporal or so. I think you were a sergeant at the time, and yeah, like I looked up to a lot of these folks because I just didn't know my way. I didn't know my way
Right.
around. I was like, how do I get things done? I had so many questions, and there was people that I would go and ask questions to, but I know who to ask questions to because I know some of them would be like, "Hey, dumbass, don't do it this way," but some of them would actually take the time to show you
To explain to
and
you.
to answer
Right.
your questions. Right, right. And you were one of those, and that's why I was like, okay, well, I can't recall what I went to you for, but I'm like, okay, this guy, he gives a crap about what he's talking about.
Right.
He's not going to treat me like trash, right? So for that, I thank you. For that, I thank you. But man, tell me about your time in the Marine Corps. Like, that was my experience when I first came in.
Um.
What did you experience when you first came in?
Mine was a little bit about the same. For me though, um, I graduated after MOS school. I ended up going to Japan for my first studio station. Got stationed in Iwakuni. That was like by far getting exposed to mainland Japan your first year
Yeah.
was definitely a very different way coming into the Marine Corps. There was an old saying. I don't know if that saying still exists because this is back in '99, yeah, 2000. I got there in I
Hmm.
think March 2000. So
Right.
they used to have a saying where you know you're so far away from CONUS, where the eyes can't see what happens here. And so because you were outside the continental United States, they love to play games. I mean, games
They do.
was the thing. And because I was legal Marine, they stationed us on the same floor in the barracks with the MPs.
Yep.
If you know anything about MPs, they play
MPs are the
games
worst.
days.
They're the
Like they
worst.
have more games than PlayStation, Xbox combined. They just have games.
Navy cop, Navy cop. Listen up, Navy
Right.
cop.
But but they also have a very strong camaraderie. And there's a very strong, I don't want to say hazing process, but you have your rites of passage, and they will make sure you
Yep.
hit every rite of passage before they acknowledge, okay, you're good, go on your own. So it was a
Right.
very different experience, only because um, one, it was already overseas. You were outside the United States. You were with a group that kind of wanted to make sure that you held true to your traditions and you earned everything that you got. It wasn't going to be given to you. So for me, it was a good experience. One of the best, and I always tell this to my kids, the way I learned in Japan is they give you this 3-day course when you come into the country. At least I don't know if they still do, and they tell you, hey, this is what you don't do. This is what you do. Don't start an international incident. So it's kind of like you got to get used to the culture. Don't put your chopsticks in the rice standing up, like little things that
Yeah. Yeah.
be considered disrespectful to them. And then they take you out to town and they drop you off and they tell you get to this place, and once you get to this place, about face and get back to base. And then so you got to kind of find your way back home. And I found that to be like amazing because now you're like and you have to pair up with someone. So you got to come back base with somebody else. And so like you're two young kids who just graduated boot camp, graduated school, and you're trying to find your way off an island back onto Iwakuni train station to get all the way back into base. That alone, that process was like mind blowing. I'm like, this is you get thrown into this country, but you have to figure it out. You have to make it back. And granted, everybody managed to make it back. Japanese people,
Right.
wonderful people. As long as you make an effort to learn to try to say the names and talk to them, they will help you in any
Right.
way possible. Um, but those little experiences kind of really sealed the deal. So when I finished my tour in Japan and I got sent back stateside, I ended up at Camp Pendleton. Coming to Camp Pendleton, it was like, all right, well, shit, yeah, okay, this is easy compared to being in Japan for your playing games all fucking day with MPs and shit. Because I remember field days with MPs was no joke. Like it is no joke. Literally, whoever the sergeant is who's gonna do the inspections the night before comes in with the white glove. They don't play that. They literally come with
Right.
they have like all these little cheap little cloth gloves, and they'll just come and do the whole thing. And people used to say, "Oh, that again, nobody does that. Nobody's ever like." That's because you haven't been to Japan. They
Hmm.
do that shit out there. But a lot of that kind of made me appreciate when I came stateside because a lot of people would say, oh, you never experienced this, you never experienced that. And there's a lot of mentality, especially in the Marine Corps, like old school Marine Corps, new school Marine Corps. And I happened to come kind of falling right as the old school was kind of ending its term and then the new school started because I went from like polishing my boots to having the deserts, from having to iron
Yeah.
your camis with starch so they can stand up on their own to having like the Marfor pad that we have now where you could just take it out the dryer, shake it, hang it up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
the only way I know.
right. So like there was a line that I was kind of walking along. So I got this kind of experience of both. So when everything transitioned to the other side or the new generation or whatever the new uniforms were, it's it was heartbreaking, but at the same time it's like, you have to understand the military is going to progress and you have to go with it. You have to
Mhm.
go with the punches, adapt and
That's right.
overcome, and just move forward. So I enjoyed that part of being my first studio station overseas and then coming back stateside because it helped me. Once I came stateside, I already knew what the program was. Like I knew what was expected of me, so you hit the ground running. And I think that's why I had a lot of advantages and had a lot of favor among the senior staff NCOs because I hit the ground running. Like they didn't have to tell me twice. Like they're like, oh shit, just tell Portilla, we'll get it done. So that kind of was an advantage for me, and it kind of helped my career as a Marine, especially in deployment. So that was a blessing I see.
And so when you got around to the closing part of your career, like when you were trying to get ready to get out, like when did you start thinking about that? And what were some of the thought processes and maybe the pre-planning that you were thinking about where you're getting ready to get out?
So I actually, my career was kind of a little bit weird in the sense that I got out in 2003 originally after my first deployment. Um,
Mhm.
and I was on the fence whether, because for me it was either I'm going to do 20 or I'm just going to do my 4 gracefully. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the opportunity and move on. I wasn't, because we've had Marines who did 10 years, 8 years, some who did 12 but couldn't progress past a certain rank, so they had to be let go of their Marine Corps. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so for me, it was always going to be all in or all out. Like I'm either doing 20 or I'm not, because there's no point of doing 8 and then like it's might as well
Yep.
just do it all or not. So towards the end of my career, I was kind of like, what was it that is going to push me forward to either stay in or go all out? Then 9/11 happened, and then we got deployed. We were in Kuwait February, um, 2020, yeah, February 2003. We started doing workups. We went to the line of departure when everything kicked off. We crossed, and it was those. And I got put on the delay. What was it the stop loss? So I was supposed to
Mm-hmm.
leave, but they had to stay an extra 2 months. Um, but during that time, it's kind of like what solidified: am I going to stay or I'm going to go? Um, and one of them had to be with the Marines that I kind of served with that we got deployed, and we would sit there at the end of the days because I'm a, I, I'm not gonna lie to you. From March to the time we got on that plane to come back home, the whole thing felt like a month to me. We were like driving for days. We were doing 16, 18-hour days. You get up at 2 in the morning. You don't know what time you're going to sleep. And so like the days to me, that time frame felt like a month. Like I couldn't tell you what day of the week it was. I just knew, hey, we have to do this. Hey, we got to pack up. We got to leapfrog. All right, boom. We have to hey, go pick up so and so from the flight. So we were just all over the place. So, but those little moments that you would have with your Marines, where you would just sit there, catch your breath, have a cigarette, and just calm down and okay, we breathe. Let's go on. In those conversations, one of the Marines said, "You know what? I don't think I'm going to re-enlist." And I'm like, and at this time I was thinking, yeah, I'm going to. He's like, think about where we are right now. This is going to be the next 20 years. And then that's what hit me. I'm like, I had seen so many suicides already on this deployment. Um, so many Marines just dying. And I was like, do I want to keep seeing, not just if something happens to me, but my brothers and sisters for the next 20 years in this position?
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like, I don't. As much as I don't want to abandon them, I also don't want to spend the next 20 years grieving for
Right.
every person. So that kind of solidified where I was like, you know what? I'm gonna see what else I can do in the world. And I ended up getting out after I came back. Funny enough story, they pulled me back in. Uh, 2004, 82nd Airborne is in charge of the Anbar province. They are getting their asses handed, and they say, hey, you know what? Send the Marines out. They recalled everybody who basically got deployed. So my second deployment actually came out of me being recalled. Like my colonel, I don't know if he was a colonel now. He retired as I think a 2-star general, but Colonel Ari at the time, he calls me up because I'm working as a civilian job
Mm-hmm.
down in San Diego. He calls me up. He's like, "Hey, Portilla," because we had a very tight connection, especially since we deployed together. He hit me up. He's like,
Yep.
"Hey, you got a few minutes to talk?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, sir. What's going on?" He's like, "How's going on?" I'm like, "Oh no, I got this sweet job. I'm doing X, Y, and Z." And he's like, "Oh, okay." Well, he's like, "I'm about to break it to you." He's like, Marines are going back out to Iraq. They asked, do we need certain people? And if we do, we're going to recall them. And unfortunately, nobody could fill your shoes. So I had you recall. He's like, in 2 weeks. And at the time, I was like, shit. So I was like, he's like, yeah, I mean, You're like, I wanted to give you more time, but when you're gonna get recalled, you're gonna get sped up, and then because you're gonna meet me in country once you get back
Yeah.
on. So I was like, okay. So I did a U-turn because I had just left work. I went to my manager's office. I'm like, I just got this phone call. Boom, I gotta go. He's like, hey, whenever if you come back, you got a job. Called my parents. Hey, they're like, but you got out. What's going on? I'm like, I'll explain to you one day. It's just not today.
That's part of the 4 years active, 4 years
4 years.
reserve, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
That's that 8 contract. It's 4 active for 9 reserve.
Oh man.
So they
The
called me
inactive ready
back up.
reserve.
Right. So I didn't even wait for a leather. I kind of knew what the process is, so I kind of started like getting everything in order. I had my will done, put my everything in storage, talked to my landlord. Like I got things together, and he was not playing. The minute I got my orders and I reported to Camp Talega in Camp Pendleton, I was checked in a day, at all my medical. I was transferred over to First MEF, and First MEF just had me sign in and be like, all right, go report to First FSSG. I get to the battalion, like, okay, Portilla, go pick up this, go pick up that, go pick up that. In 3 days, I was out of country on a flight back into Iraq. Like he wasn't joking when he said, "Hey, the minute you come in, they're gonna push you out because you had to meet me in country." So that kind of changed a lot because I thought I was out, and you get called back in, and it was a different war. I can sit here for hours and tell you the difference between the war where we did in 2003 and everything after. It was like 2 completely different wars, to the point where in 2003 we were fucking flying up. I'm sorry for cursing, but we were flying up, up the main road, heading towards north towards Baghdad. No doors on our Humvees. Some people had all the Humvees completely just topless, just cruising through. People hanging out with their M16s, just pointing in all directions, just cruising. And then, fast forward 2004, 2005, IEDs everywhere, mortar attacks everywhere, flights getting shot down, like entrances being blown up, car bomb. Like it was 2 completely different wars. Um, and it changed perspective for me in a lot of ways. Um, but that was my second deployment. I was supposed to do 7 months in country. I Half the Marines I was working with decided to re-up, so I was like, "Fuck it, if you guys staying, I'm staying." So a whole group of us just re-up. We did 13 months, came back, and got out again. And then somewhere along the line in 2008, I decided to join the reserves just because fuck it, why not? And my second drill in the reserves, and they start saying, "Hey, we're building up a unit to get deployed." That's my second drill, and like, "Oh, Portilla, by the way, your name is on that list." I'm like, "Yeah, I just joined this unit like 2 weekends ago. Like, I'm already getting deployed." I'm like, man. I'm like, well, it's a good thing I didn't stay in 20 years because I would probably got deployed every other deployment, and God knows what would have happened after that. But so
Oh man.
my career is a little bit all over the place. When people ask me, they're like, "That's not possible." I'm like, I wish I could say it's not possible, but these things happen.
It is very much possible. I think you might be the first person I ever met that got recalled on that 4 years and 4 years thing.
It
And
was a whole
it's a
big. It
very
was like
possible thing.
it's a very and the people who were in Iraq from around that 2004 to 2006 time, the majority of them were recalled. Just back into active service because they realized all of our experience got out the Marine Corps. We need them back because we went back to the same deployment. So yeah, and I
Right.
mean
And
like
then
that shaped a lot of it. So yeah.
and once you got out, all right. So 3 deployments, you decided to get out because you didn't want to have to deal with all that mess anymore.
Right.
And you joined out of New Jersey. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, New Jersey,
Okay.
Clifton.
New Jersey. Okay. So
Right.
you joined out of there. Did you move back there?
Uh, I moved back there after my second deployment. Once we came back, um, I was like, you know what? I love California. It was getting kind of pricey, but
Hmm.
I also didn't know what I wanted out of life. I think my deployments taught me exactly what I didn't want out of life. You know, they taught me more so because a lot of people say, "Oh, you always need to know what you want," but more importantly, you also need to know what you don't want. What you don't need in your life. This goes for like jobs, relationships. Sometimes, you have to say what's more important, the yes or the no. And sometimes knowing what the no is more important. And realizing that, I was like, you know what? I was not in a good headspace. Um, so I was like, let me go home, or where I, considered home, and try to like find my focus. If I, like that's let that be my jumping point. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, honestly. I had the ability to get government jobs I wanted to. I had a clearance at the time. That's how I got the first job once I got out in 2003, because I had a clearance, and they needed veterans who had clearances because it was a job on base.
Hmm.
So I had the opportunity to get all these government jobs, but I didn't know what I really wanted in life. So I started applying for everything. I worked at the post office for a little bit. I actually joined TSA for a little bit, and I realized this is not what I want. And then I realized I don't want a federal job, or I don't want a government job. And then I kind of started exploring what else I wanted. Um, and I think it's important for a lot of people when they get out. They don't. I was in a very common group where you don't know what you want to do. For people who retire, they kind of have an inkling because they've been doing it for like 20 plus years or however before they retire. Marines who do one or two tours, they have no inkling. The reality is like, I did this job for 4 years. This job might not translate in the civilian world. So what do I do now? Or I did this job for 4 years and I like it. It's easy to me, but I don't want to do it for the rest of my life. So then what do I do? And that's where I kind of
Yeah.
found myself. Like, I didn't know. So I started taking all these jobs doing, I bartended for a little bit. I got into acting. I just kind of fell into acting. And then I realized, because I went to a performing arts high school when I was a kid. I was a theater major. So I kind of found my way back into the arts. I would always fall into the arts. And in between, the way I got into acting is like I was literally in New York City on a day off, not knowing what I wanted to do, and I bump into this person. She happened to be a very beautiful black lady. She was about 6'3". She was a model. You could just tell. And she's like, "Oh, I'm like, I'm so sorry." She's like, "Oh, don't worry, it's fine." And she's like, "Oh, you have a nice smile." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." She's like, "Do you model?" I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Do you act at least?" I'm like, "I haven't since high school." And she's like, "Here's my card." She ended up being a model and she worked with the service. Long story short, she ended up getting me back into acting. And then I realized I love the arts. This is where I want to
Yeah.
be. Now, do I always want to be in front of the camera? Because I realized being in front of the camera, you're telling a part of the story as a character. You can be telling the whole story as a producer or director or storyteller or author or screenwriter. So I kind of fell back into the arts by kind of doing all these jobs that I realized I didn't want to be doing for 20
Hmm.
years to retire or to like, killed over somewhere. So that's how I ended up getting back into filmmaking and writing and stuff. It's because of all the jobs that I did when I got out, because I had no idea what I wanted to do, which
I
is
got
good
a
for a lot
quick
of
follow
reasons.
on for this.
Yeah.
Is when you went back to Jersey, and I'm guessing like that's kind of like your stomping ground. It was really familiar. Did it did it initially, or actually the whole course of it? Sounds like you met some people along the way while you were there up in New York. But I'm curious to know if it actually helped or hurted, because I know for me personally, when I go back to my hometown now, it's a little bit different. But when I was in my 20s, my 30s, like when I would go back to my hometown and I would re-assimilate with that kind of sense of being in that space, it was like a different context versus me being in the military or me being overseas. And I'm wondering if that helped out a lot, or if it like kind of what was that feeling like? Because I know people that are retiring, that's a big choice for a lot of people that we talk to and folks that we interact with in the chat and stuff and on the Facebook group is, where do I relocate to? Do I want to
Right.
go back to my hometown? Do I want to go to another place because of a job? Like that kind of thing. But I'm really curious about that specific thing.
So, in hindsight's 2020. I everything I believe that it happened for a reason. I went back home. Had I know what I know, I probably should have stayed in California. Um, Not for anything bad, but you go back home with the I went back home with the, and most people probably do the same. They go back home with the wrong intentions. They think you're going back home, you're going back to this comfort. You're going back to these times that you felt comfortable, you felt safe. Back to a time where there was innocence, you know? The
Right.
reality is, um, when you get deployed, time doesn't stop. Everybody's life continues. And you come back hoping that everything is back where you left it, and it's not. So coming back home actually kind of put me in a bad state of mind because I realized everybody moved on. I was the one who was stuck, you know. So hindsight, I should probably stayed with the friends that I had in California because at least I would have known, hey, you know, there's nothing home about this. I'm gonna do the best I can living in California. Coming home, I thought I was coming home to comfort, and I realized I came home because that's what I thought was what I needed. In reality, it wasn't because everybody had moved on. I was the only person hanging on, so that kind of put me in a bad state of mind. I think I made things a little bit harder for me because I thought, you know, this is my old neighborhood. These are all my old friends, but that's the reason they're old because you're past it. You grew past it. They grew in one direction, you grew in another, and I was trying to
Hmm.
hold on to that. So I think, you know, everything happens for a reason. I came back home. Maybe that was a lesson I needed to learn. And you know, there's a reason you left for the military to go abroad, to go see the world, to move on past this one place, which you called home. Um, and coming back to it, you're right. I came back for the wrong reasons, thinking it was going to solve my problems, you know, fix whatever issues I was going on with PTSD at the time. And it really didn't. It just kind of solidified, like, hey, that Omar that you grew up as, that kid is long gone. Like, this is the Omar now. So deal with him, figure him out, and move on. So I don't think it helped, but I think it did help. It did open my eyes for me to be able to move forward with my life past that whole military phase. For sure.
So Omar, I know that. So we grew up in the same town,
Yeah, Patterson.
right? We did in Patterson, New Jersey, and people don't know like where Patterson is. I'm like, all right, just flip on this old movie with Morgan Freeman called Lean on Me,
Yeah,
and you'll
that's
know a little bit about Patterson, New Jersey,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, we grew up, and then we also share a similar culture, right? Cultural background, which is
Right,
Peruvian,
Peruvian. Right,
right?
right.
So, and I know that um, parents expect a lot out of us
Mm,
in that culture, right? It is very much so. How can you do well for the family, you know? And you have to kind of show face for people outside of that. At least what I've been exposed to. When you went back home, you know, did you have any conversations with your family about that? Like, hey, what's going to happen next? What's your next steps in life? Anything like that?
yeah. Everybody wanted to kind of know what my big plan was, you know.
Yeah.
And I had no plans, to be honest with you. But you know, you go to all the family. I don't know if your family is as crazy as mine, but anytime somebody comes back from like being away for
Yes.
a while, everybody wants to throw a party. Everybody wants to throw you a
Yes.
dinner. So you're going to like 3 dinners in like 10 days, and you're getting super fat. Everybody's trying to feed you, and like, and everybody wants to know what is your big plan for the future. And I really didn't have one.
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm home, and that's my first step. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But I kept telling everybody, "Oh, you know, I'm gonna take my time. I'm go back to school. I got the GI Bill." I'm like, "Okay, great," but I did that more um, to shut them up. Honestly,
Yeah.
you know, you did that.
Yeah.
You do that more for them, not for you, because I didn't know if I wanted to go back to school. Like, and in hindsight, the way I got into filmmaking, I could have probably not gone to school and continued filmmaking, like just jumping on projects here and there, and probably learned just as much as I did if I would have gone to 4 years. Because there's certain jobs, and I tell that to every person who kind of is like, "Oh, I want to be a filmmaker." I'm like, get on the set. There's 100 sets. Some of them might pay, some of them might not. You'll learn more on that set, breasting your ass as a production assistant, than you would
Yeah.
4 years in college. Because yes, the 4 years of college teach you fundamentals, but they taught you fundamentals of art, like so you appreciate art, bringing the art into your films, your storytelling. But there's nothing behind it where it teaches you. You know, yes, we had lighting classes, but until you actually go on a set and work with a gaffer lighting, you won't learn
Hmm.
how to do lighting right. Unless you play with your cameras and lenses and making mistakes and saying, oh, this lens works for this and this works for that, you're not going to learn. Like a lot of the stuff
Right.
that I could have learned, probably should have learned on set. I mean, I'm glad for the friendships and the people I've made, because along the way, we kind of share jobs with each other. So here's a gig, I can't take it, you take it. I can't take it, you take it. So you build that, you build your network, which is important, especially in this industry. Um, but for me, I didn't know if I wanted to go to school for anything in particular.
Right.
So I just kept saying, hey, no, no, yeah, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go to school. And then when I wasn't going to school after a couple of months, it's like, oh, why aren't you going to school now? Oh, why aren't you going to school anyway?
Dude,
You
trust
know
me,
how
I
it
get the
is.
same thing. I get the same thing. And I was telling John when I got let go for my federal job here recently, immediately it was like, what's the next step? What are you gonna
Right,
do? You know?
right.
And like, have you told anybody about this? I'm like, well, yeah, I put a little bit about it on Facebook, and they're like, oh my God, why?
Yeah.
Like people are gonna find out.
Unfortunately, we put it on a live stream every Sunday, so it's only a few people
It's a
watching.
thing. It's a thing, right? Like, oh my God, what are people gonna think? Just and it's very much so like that, right? But yeah, and I completely get it. You told them that just to keep them quiet, but you really didn't know. You
Right,
really didn't have everything, because we don't, right? You leave the military, it's kind of a wide open ocean. You are, like I mentioned in a previous video, it's like you're in a boat without a paddle. You don't
right,
really have any direction. You can't really get there. You just have to kind of wait until the waves take you somewhere or in the direction that you want to go in. Um, but then you got into like filmmaking, and and you mentioned you wanted to be both an actor, or you worked as an actor, but then you also realized being behind the camera,
right.
behind the scenes, is where you actually want to be. So that's where you lived. That's where you wanted to be then.
Yeah, that's where when you find, okay, I want to do arts, or I want to do something in the, I want to be a storyteller
Mhm.
in some form or fashion. But I want to be a storyteller in the sense that I want to tell the story. I don't want to be a character in the story. Which a lot of actors who eventually make it to producers, that's the reason they become producers, because they realize, hey, I'm telling a part of the story as this person, but I want to tell the whole story as the person who's telling the story.
Right.
Um, and that's what I found out. And then once you make that decision, you start kind of moving your direction or your career in that direction. I used to have a lot of more equipment than I have now. And you
Mhm.
guys are talking about cameras. Talk about, I used to sell and buy cameras every 6 months just because this one had this ND filter built in, and this one can do raw, and this could. So for the longest time, I was just chasing equipment, and then I had a friend he's an amazing cinematographer and director of photography. Who one day he was kind of in the same boat, and one day he just sold everything. He's like, you know what? I want people to hire me for me, and then we can rent the equipment that we need for this vision. And having
There
that
you go.
conversation with him was like, yo, that's exactly what it is. You come to me because you want me to tell the story. The equipment and all the specifics, that's something we'll address later. But if you're gonna come to me, it's because you want the way I tell stories and the way you like I tell stories. And that kind of helped me realize that, all right, if this is the reality, is like, I'm chasing here, chasing to stay keep up with the Joneses, because a lot of people, especially when I was doing camera work and I was trying to be a camera operator and a cinematographer myself, people was like, oh, what camera are you shooting on? Oh, I don't know if I want my. The reality is, like, I seen there's a movie called Chop Shop that I watched in college. This movie was shot on those mini DV cameras, like the home held cameras,
Mhm.
right? They
Yep.
just use like little filters on top of it. This movie, like the our teacher explained to us, this movie was shot on a mini DV camera. The minute we saw it, we were like, oh, okay, yeah, it looks like that a little bit. 5 minutes into the film, we all forgot about it. The movie was so amazing. The acting, the directing, just the way the movie was told, you were so enthralled. And at the end of the film, he's like, "What did I tell you about the film in the beginning?" And everybody's like, "I don't know. What you tell us about the film?" He's like, "It was shot in a mini DV." And he's like, "But that didn't matter, because the minute you saw seeing that movie, you saw the story, you felt with the characters, and they pulled you in. You forgot who shot it, or if it was shot on an iPhone or anything. You just paid
Yeah.
attention to the story." And it's those little moments that kind of pull you away from, like, it's good to have the right equipment, but it's better to have the right people. And when you do that, then you start kind of cutting back on chasing, and you start developing, and you start kind of putting your team together, putting yourself together, realizing, okay, this is my direction. In order for me to do this, I have to let go of this. Because I used to do everything. I used to shoot, I used to edit, I used to color, I used to blah blah blah, and do it all. And then you realize I don't want to do it all. I just want to do this. I'll put
Yep.
the team together. And then after that, it's been a lot smoother sailing. And then COVID hit, and then kind of threw a wrench into everything. But it's a different story.
I want to zoom in real quick on this last piece that we just talked about. When you were figuring out your way and trying to find your way doing the filmmaking, and maybe you can paint the picture for me or explain it to me, because it's another thing that I feel like a lot of people who are trying to find that passion, trying to find that path in life, especially coming after, a decade or two of military service and then going out into the real world. And you're like, well, what do I do now? Me and Vic have both said it, like, what do I do with my hands? You're just kind of floating out there. And a lot of people just, it depends on the personality, but sometimes people just jump into these things. And I feel like they're very specialized, like, ideas of what they want to do. Like, I want to go work at XYZ company doing this, right? And it sounds like you jumped into it from a perspective of big picture. This is where I want to be. I want to be around the film industry. And then as you worked around the film industry, you kind of figured out, like, oh, hey, this specific piece of it is what I really actually enjoy. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I would like to try to, like, deconstruct that kind of thought process
Right.
of figuring out what you want to do with your life from that perspective of looking at it big picture, and then zooming down into the specific thing that you ended up doing.
Well, yeah, it kind of goes back to what Vic said. You're the ship in the ocean without sails or paddle. And you're just hoping you either reach land or you find a direction which pleases you. So that's why, like, my daughter asked me literally this week. She asked me, Dad, how many jobs did you have after the military? And I sat there and I'm like, I've had a shit ton of jobs since I got out of the military. Like, I said, the post office. I was a bartender. I was a waiter. I worked at TSA for a little bit. I worked at a factory for industrial stuff. I did deliveries for some time. I worked at Apple as a tech at the Genius Bar. So, like, I've had jobs from just about everything. And in that process, you kind of learn what you don't want. And once you find that direction, once you find the boat or you hit that land and you're like, you know what, I like it here. Where do I go from here? Um, if you find a direction, the best thing is to try a little bit of everything, you know, and you're gonna see what you don't like and what you do like, or what you gravitate to. Now, there's a danger between what you're good at and what you like, because there's some people who are just good at everything, and not because they're that amazing people, but you teach them something and they'll pick it up so quick they'll just make it theirs. And that's how they're built, you know. And I've met a lot of people, especially in the military, that's not their desire, but you teach them how to do this, they'll make it theirs and they'll go full steam ahead. But that's not what they love to do or they want to do. They could just,
Right.
anything you give them, they just become good at it. So you have to kind of figure out not just what you're good at, but what you want to do. Um, you know, because I find myself that you give me enough time, I can become good at anything. But do I want to spend the rest of my life doing that? And it wasn't until I started, like, putting teams together, making short films, and then helping produce feature films, when I realized, like, this is what I like the interaction. I like seeing a project from the beginning to the end, because as a producer, you find a script, you find a director, you get the team together, you get the money together, you start making your projects, and then you see it all the way to the end. Whereas if you do cinematography, you come on the production side, you shoot it, and then you move on. And then they might ask you back so you can help color correct or reframe some shots. But then you're past and you're on your next project. Producers, they baby it from infancy all the way to it's time to go leave the nest, go to the theaters or go on the shelf after the DVD is done, and then on to my next project. And that takes a lot more time, It takes a lot more nurturing in the sense that you have to build the team. You have to see it to fruition. You're the one who's going to have more ulcers than everybody because you're there, from beginning to end. But that's what I liked, and it was pretty much, um, to me, it was the closest thing of all the jobs that I've had that reminded me of the military. Because you come together for a short amount of time and you're living with each other because depending on where you're shooting, you might spend 30 days together, night and day, 14, 12-hour days, back to back. You will know each other's hates, desires. You will know when to read somebody and leave them alone because they need a breath, they just need a minute. And you will know when somebody needs to be pulled aside because they need to catch their breath. And that was the closest that I remember of any organization that I remember that reminded me of the Marine Corps. And I was like, this is where I want to be. There's camaraderie here. It's a bunch of people who might not see the same politically, ideology, but they'll come together to create something because they believe in this project enough to come together, put their differences aside, make this project, and then enjoy it and move on.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you find that is by tasting a little bit. Like once you find, okay, this is the island. Which side of the island do I want to live on? The side right by the water? Oh no, it floods too much. I don't like that. Oh, I like it higher where there's a nice little fog in the morning and there's mist. I want to live higher up. You have to try it though. You have to go out there and make those mistakes because people think, I don't want to, I don't want to make mistakes. But here's the funny thing I learned. Probably I wish I would have learned younger when I was younger. But mistakes are part of the success. Like nobody who's ever been successful has ever said they never made a mistake. That's a step towards success. If you fail at something, it doesn't mean you give up. It just means like this is one step closer to the day I get to where I want to be. But you have to try it though. You just can't say, well, I don't like it. I might fail at this. I'm not going to try it because then you'll never know if that's the direction you need to go or if that's the direction you need to go. You need to try it. And some people, they're afraid of that, but you got to do it. If you want to know exactly where you fit in, you got to do it.
And there's so many veterans that get out, and that's the reality of it too. Is you're going to work more than one job because you're going to find out nothing else is going to compare to one, like you mentioned, the camaraderie that you had in the military, or like the mission, the unity of the mission, like you had in the military, right? Working towards a common goal, and it's going to be hard to find that. And then, there's going to be folks who work one job. Maybe they love, I don't know, working at Lowe's when they get out and that's where they spend the rest of their time. Or like you had multiple jobs because you were trying to find your way around what you really wanted to do. And as we talk to a lot of folks on here and on the podcast and even, online and stuff, we find that people are, that's the biggest thing that I think after getting out of the military is finding your next purpose and passion, right? What do you really want to do? And that's like gold, man. I mean, you found the gold, right? That you, Omar, found the gold because you found what you really love. It's filmmaking. You're telling the story from both perspectives, from the artist to the filmmaker, which is also an artist, but in front of the camera, back of the camera. And a lot of folks, unfortunately, don't find that gold and they stay stuck in something that they never really want to do only because, well, I'm stuck in the routine now and it pays the bills and this is my life now, but I mean, you gotta, for folks who get out, you gotta try a lot of things because not one thing is going to fit you right off the bat. It didn't work for me. I'm sure it didn't work for John. I mean, I've worked multiple jobs now trying to figure out what the hell I want to do, so I'm kind of in the same boat, and I'm sure for 2 years from now, 4 years from now, I'm probably going to have something else because you go from working at a duty station for 3 years, right? And then you PCS, and then you got a whole new crew there with a new, I guess, sort of a new mission, right? Same end result, but you got to work with them. And it's like, okay, well, I'm done working here for like 2 years. Let me try this out now. Because you kind of get bored of the same routine, kind of like living somewhere for too long. And man, I really hope that I find what you found, man, because it is awesome. It is awesome. Yeah, you found that gold, Omar.
I mean, you're already on the track, man. You got your podcast, you got your shows. Like, I can't wait till you put out a book. So, like, I'm sure it's gonna happen sometime down the road. So, yeah, you
I'm
stick
glad you
with
mentioned that, Omar. I'm glad you mentioned that. You go on Amazon and get the bottom line up front, what you need to know before you leave the military. The great plug. Thank you for that transition.
There you go. So this is what I do. This is what I do.
Alley-oop.
There you go.
No, but
Easy.
Omar, like similar to you, I think it's a story I've told here before. It when I left the military, I sat at downtown. You've been here in San Diego, Balboa Park. It's a big kind
Yeah.
of park
Oh yeah, beautiful
downtown.
park.
Beautiful park, kind of Spanish architecture. And I sat there for a month and I drew portraits of people.
I know. I saw them.
I just drew
Beautiful.
photos, portraits. I love art myself, and I drew portraits, and just trying to figure out my next step. That's it. And I figured, okay, well, I at one point I felt like, all right, I gotta be an adult now because I have a family and I have to do something that pays the bills. And
Right.
that's when I was like, okay, well, let me figure something else out. Let me leave this thing that I love and go be an adult somehow. And I really wish I would have kept going with that. Now I'm getting back into it a little bit more, right? As I'm trying to figure things out. But that's the hard part. It's like, how do I turn this thing that I love into something that will, actually like pay, but I still love it. That doesn't feel like a job, but I still love it. That's the hard part, I think, for me.
It is, but maybe this is your course correction. The universe's way of saying, hey, get back to drawing. Like, get the hell out
Yeah,
the office. Get back to drawing. Like, I
yeah,
mean,
it could be.
if that's just a course correction, the universe has moved a lot of shit just to make you realize you need to go follow your passion.
They have, yes, they have. Man, and then I'm curious about the whole author thing. So you're,
Oh, right.
yeah, it says veteran, filmmaker, author. Okay, and I know we talked a little bit about it when you sent us the email on the whole author bit, right? I won't take away I won't take away from you. I want you to tell me, how did that transition from going from veteran to filmmaker to now an author?
So that just has to do with years of the common mentality of a Marine. You keep it all inside and you just keep trucking.
Yeah.
I've always told stories, even just written stories, short stories. It all goes with part of when I was a young actor. One of my professors or my teachers at Rosa Parks was like, the best way to develop a character is write their story. If you write that character story, you have a better understanding of the character. So if your role is so and so, sit down and like so and so was born on this day at this time. Here's his parents. He grew up when he was a kid. He fell from a tree. Blah blah blah. You write the story for the character you're going to be to help you as an actor breathe life into that character. So I was always writing these stories. So the writing part was always kind of second nature, even when screenwriting, because I had to write screenwriting for classes for colleges. Some of my short films in college I had to write the screenplay for. So the writing wasn't the difficult part. The difficult part was kind of like dealing with the PTSD issues that I thought I had under control, and would occasionally, poke its head. And then one day I just realized I needed help. So I finally made the difficult decision to get help. And in that process, the way you address it is by talking about it, visualizing it, writing about it, ignoring it and just kind of putting it back in your head. I'll think about it later, or I don't want to think about it anymore. Only makes it harder because it just boils up. So in that process, Joseph, the guy, my PTSD counselor at the VA, he started me on a program where I would, we'd have our counseling sessions. I would write the traumas of the stuff I've been through, whether, you have been on deployment, I would write the stories of the things that just shocked me the most in my time in service. And what I found was when I would write those sessions, I would still have so much more like left, like something biting at me. So I started kind of writing poems and short stories. And I found that when, I would have an episode or have a trigger that would remind me of a trauma, I would just get out my notebook and I would just start writing. And I would just start writing. Um, and it came to the point where I had like 400 and something stories, just poems and short stories, just written out of trauma. Um, and a couple years ago, about 2 years ago, I met. I think you met Maria. She put me in contact with another veteran who was putting together books of poems for service members who deployed. She was gonna, take all the profits and give it to an organization that, kind of got veterans with PTSD to deal with their PTSD through jujitsu and stuff, which was a great program. And I was like, yeah, sure. And she's like, if you have a short story or um, a poem or something, I just want to put a couple pages in the book. So, I didn't at the time. So I wrote something off the top, sent it there. She's like, I love it. You should really, write your own poems, write your own book. Why don't you? I'm like, and I told her, actually, I do. It's part of my PTSD counseling. And she kind of motivated me into like, put them together, start with the small book, get it out there. And I'm going to tell you, that was probably the hardest thing I've had to do in a long time because after I would write a lot of this stuff, I would put it down and I just didn't want to read it again. It was just my way of like getting it out there. So during the actual process of putting the book together, I kind of like stirred up a lot of more emotions, which was good because it helps you get it out. And it helped, and when I sent it to a couple of veteran friends to kind of read, they're like, yo, it's good because it lets other people know they're not alone. And it lets you speak the things that you're afraid of because then they lose power over you. The more you speak of it, the less, it can control you. So that's kind of how I fumbled my way, the best way I could describe it, into putting together a book of my poems and my short stories and kind of getting out there. And I fumbled a lot on the way to do this, to be honest with you. But, when I finally finished and I published, I'm like, it felt good and it felt right, And so now I'm going to start marketing more of the book and then start working towards the second volume uh, for some of the other stories. And it's actually helped me because now I have two screenplays that I'm writing right now just because I felt inspired by this. And through trauma comes creativity, I guess, or for at least for me, through trauma I get more creative. So it's helped me in that sense. That's how I kind of came up to be the author. I just kind of stumbled along in the process of kind of healing myself and kind of putting myself in a better position. Because at the end of the day, you're right. It's easier if you're alone, but when you're a parent and you have people depending on you, looking up to you, you got to set the example. So you just can't sit back and let it eat away at you. You got to get better and push forward. So that's how it all came about.
So for anybody out there wondering what the book is called, it's called Dust Settles. All right.
Yes.
And tell me about this name.
So those are my grandparents. May they rest in peace.
Okay.
They passed away when I was relatively 24, 25. My Segundo and Juan are Segundo is my dad's father. Juan and Deborah are my mom's parents. And they really played being from a Latino family, a Peruvian family, my grandparents played a key role in my development. And it's weird because I see my parents, how they are with my kids. And my grandparents are way different. Way there. They weren't as nice, but they would pull me aside and be like, "Hey, you're fucking up. This is how you fix it." Like they would tell me, like my grandmother, like my grandmother was like my second mom, and she would catch me doing something. She would slap me upside the head. What are you doing? I'm watching you. Like, but they kept me in check because I was a crazy kid. Like how kids say they get their ass beat by their parents. I am probably one of the few people who will tell you I deserved about 90% of my whippings at the capacity that they're giving to me. I'm not gonna say and play victim. I deserved about 90% of that, and at the capacity my mom gave it to me for sure. But my grandparents, they played a hard. They played a strong role in my development. And with the exception of my grandfather, my dad's side, when I graduated boot camp, they were the most ecstatic. Like they would not stop telling the world. And so when I was putting this together, I would always kind of picture them when I was writing my stories. I was like, would they be proud of me? Would they be not? So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna write it in their name because it was their influence. So yeah, man. And so whenever I think of them, I always get like a little bit because I don't get to see them anymore. You know?
Right.
And the last time I did get to see them, I don't think I appreciated it because you don't know that they're not gonna be there tomorrow. So
hmm
so yeah, that's where I got the name from.
Yeah, there was a something I heard recently. It might have been another podcast. I can't recall what it was, and it was a guy who talked about seeing his parents. Right, he's
Right.
like, hey, look, he moved away from his parents, maybe across the country, and he did some calculations, and he's like, look, you realistically, like his parents were, I don't know, 60. He's like, realistically, like the life expectancy of, an American is maybe 75.
Right.
He's like, I only have 15 more times I can see my parents. Like I will only see them because he only went home once a year, right? Like for Christmas or something. He's like, I will realistically only see my parents 15 more times in my life. And so that's like the jumping point where he decided to move back to where his family was so he can actually see them again. And that kind of, I only say that because you mentioned, you can't see your grandparents again, and then the life that you chose, being in the military and all that, you were not home a lot. You were overseas, you were in San Diego, your family is on the East Coast, so you don't have a lot of that
Right.
FaceTime with the family. Um, with that, I mentioned I tabbed a couple things on here, a couple pieces that really stood out to me. And I have not read the whole thing yet. It's really good, and I'm still going through it. I know I just got in the mail not too long ago, but the two pieces that stand out to me, man, and I really appreciate you sending me these are the ringing, which was incredible, and it looks like it was a mortar
Yeah.
that hit you, and then an officer woke you up, and then just a strong piece, man, a really strong piece, and then um, the other one was the long journey, part one. I haven't gotten to part two yet, but it really told the whole story about you going from what you knew to a place to an unknown place, and trying to make a new life in this unknown place. And you were young, right? And you didn't know what was happening. You were just kind of following your mother's lead.
Right.
Yeah, really strong pieces, man. I really do appreciate you sending me this, and I'm gonna tell everybody I know about this, man, because I'm a big poem reader myself. I love reading stuff on like stoicism, poems, and stuff, things like that. Really, really awesome stuff in here, man. I
Appreciate that.
appreciate you putting this out, man. I really do. And then we'll share the link to the Amazon here in a second.
I
Yeah, I can
appreciate
pull
that.
it up.
I really do. Yeah. It's only the beginning. Now I have everybody asking me for more. So I'm like, hey, I have 400 old writings. I'm still writing to this day now. So it's gonna
Put
be a
them out there, man.
continuous effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And I actually, it's funny because one of my friends is like, you know what you should do? Take some of the smaller poems and make them into like a YouTube channel. I'm like, oh, challenge accepted. Maybe I'll start a channel with the poems. Have somebody else to read them though, because I don't have the best reading voice. So.
Let's do it, dude. Let's do it. I've been working on that voiceovers thing.
I know. I hear your voice. I'm like,
Let's
ooh,
do
look
it.
at this guy. Been working on that. Give me a commercial as soon as I can hear it.
And for context, what we were just talking about, if anybody wants to dig a little bit deeper into that, because it's actually a really good exercise in just your own mortality and connecting with those around you that you love and care about. There's a great article. The website's called Wait But Why. It's Tim Urban, and it basically spells out like here what you were saying. If you've got 75 years, basically, that's how many potential Super Bowl games you've got left with that person, or how many birthdays you've got left with that person, that kind of thing. So great article if anybody's interested in it.
Yeah, and I appreciate you you putting this in there. You know, it really kind of hit home with I asked you to sign it for me, right? And you mentioned like the gunner would be proud of you of what you accomplished, and that really hit home because I really did look up to him before he passed away, right? I still do, you know. So Gunner McGriff, you know, rest in peace. He I deployed with him, and awesome dude, and I was also a knucklehead. You know, I would have to go outside in the back,
he loved his
and
knuckleheads for
also,
sure.
yeah, he definitely did, right? And I think that's why he chose me for deployment. And he was like, this guy, I can fix this guy. I think. And I recall at one time I was in the back. I had to clean out one of these quadcons in the back, you know, like those big metal containers. Had a bunch of supplies and stuff in there. And then I got bored and I started like messing around and throwing. I cut a bottle, like it was like a 2-liter bottle or whatever, and I put it in the corner by the HESCO barriers, and I started throwing pebbles into it. And I'm like, all right, this is my new game. Just seeing if I could throw pebbles into it from like 20 feet away. And then in the back, I hear, "Are we done yet?" You know, like in his roaring Mufasa voice, right?
Exactly.
And I'm like, I look around because I couldn't see anybody. I was like, who the hell is Gunner back here? And he was behind the cami netting, and he was smoking a cigar in the back on some makeshift, you know, little chair. He's like, it doesn't look like we have enough to do, does it? I'm like, oh shit, he got me, man. So of course I spent a lot of time in 120-degree weather cleaning out a quadcon it was probably 140 inside that metal container. But you know, these are the things I remember. You know, he definitely took me under his wing, made me a better person. I kind of followed in his footsteps going the chief officer route because I figured, you know, I learned a lot from this guy. He taught me how to be a better person, you know, a better Marine. Kept me accountable, which was the biggest thing, right? Kept me accountable. So I really do appreciate that, man. Yeah, I thank you for putting that in there, man. That really hit home.
He would, honestly, he would.
Yeah, man.
That's excellent. Without dragging out and taking up all your time, you know, we want to be respectful of your time, but is there anything that we haven't covered yet that maybe you want to touch on, or anything kind of in the back of your mind floating around after this conversation that we've just had that maybe you want to bring to the table?
You know, you guys did a great job. I don't think there's enough services and programs out there that let Marines, not just Marines, but service members realize, you know, this, if you do choose this to be the end of your journey, you have to kind of start preparing for what's next. I wish there was channels like this when I got out, especially when it has to do with like the VA programs and stuff like that. The only reason I even got into the VA program is because on my second deployment, we had a corpsman who worked S3, and you know, she kind of figured out, oh, you're getting out. Oh, did you set up your VA? And I'm like, no, I don't even know what to do. I'm just gonna get out. She's like, give me your info, and like she literally helped me get set up to get onto the VA. You know, to get the health inspection, to get all your stuff into the VA, so they can start, you know, looking into your to helping you to see if you have any issues or anything like that. If it wasn't for her, I'd probably be still out there suffering, doing things the hard way, because I wouldn't have known any better. So you guys are amazing that you guys are doing this, because honestly, most service members, if they're not doing 20 years and they're getting out, they don't know what the next step is. You know, whether it's their benefits or careers or where to apply, they're just lost they're lost at sea, hoping somebody finds them or they land somewhere. So, you know, keep it up. I really appreciate what you guys are doing. For sure.
Appreciate it, man. And Omar, before you go, man, I want to bring up, have you heard of the GI Festival? The GI Film Festival?
Dude, don't even get me started. That broke my heart.
Oh man. So I was looking at going to this in May. It's not far from me here. And I don't know if that's something you've attended or showing your films at or anything like that?
So I'll give you a short, brief 2-minute story. On my
Yeah.
last deployment, I was still an actor part time, and when I was in the reserve, I had done a short film that premiered at the GI Film Festival. At this time, they had one in DC. That's the same year that Taking Chance came out, and my film
Yep.
got accepted to the festival. We were supposed to meet Kevin Bacon, but because I got activated to go on this deployment, when everybody was driving down to DC, I was driving on a bus down to North Carolina, and I was on my
Oh,
phone, and I was watching all my castmates and directors and producers take pictures of Kevin Bacon and his wife while my ass is on the
oh
bus.
no.
So yeah, man. But yeah,
Well,
I would love to go to that film festival. But I always told myself, next time I go to that film festival, it's because I'm gonna have a film in it. So I gotta get my ass off this chair and start putting together a film to submit for that for sure.
absolutely, man. Just whenever you're in San Diego, I'd love to meet up with you again, man.
No,
And
definitely.
I've been I've been keeping in contact with some of the folks on these the GI Film Festival. I'm looking to attend here in this one coming up in May. And I think they have it every year, right? But
Yeah.
it looks very cool to support veterans and their projects and their endeavors, their passions, and I love to watch this stuff, man. I really do. So yeah, if you ever get on there and you got a film, we'll
Oh,
definitely
I'll
meet
let
up,
you
man.
know.
We'll attend that
Trust
thing
me.
together.
I'll let you know for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you are bored and you want to go to a really cool place to meet up with a lot of people who are doing a lot of things in the kind of influencer space and putting out a lot of really good information, if you get a chance, the Military Influencer Conference, I went last year and we were supposed to meet up, but things
Yeah,
happened.
that was really interesting. Yeah, I want to look into that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
because
you'll
there's
meet
a
so
lot
many
of
people there.
influencers, military influencers that I kind of keep bumping into, and I'm like, I need to build this network because they're doing a lot of work on their end to just develop. I mean, a lot of them have their own organizations, but a lot of them are just trying to connect and spread the word because there's a lot of stuff out there for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like a baby South by Southwest for only military and veterans.
Nice.
I mean, South by Southwest is a huge conference, and they've got a lot of interesting, cool stuff there. Also, a great place to go show films.
Right.
But yeah, the Military Influencer Conference, you can definitely connect with the community of veterans, veteran service people running 401 or whatever they're called, the 403Cs or
All right, the
nonprofits.
Yeah, nonprofits. Yeah.
Different things like that. I always go to 403C, but yeah, there's a lot of really good people out there, and it's a great place to make the connections with other people and also get your name out there. And if you're trying to bring your book out there, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are primed to actually read it and hear it.
Oh,
yeah.
That's
Should be a speaker out there, man.
I mean, that because this is once you put the book out, that's the easy part. Marketing. Yeah. That's.
Hey, well, you know what? As much as we can on our side, we'll push the book.
Oh,
man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a great one, and I can't wait to finish reading it, man. I took it with me yesterday to my son's baseball game, and right before the game, I was just kind of sitting there, just going through it, marking a couple things on it, and it was just good reading, man. It really is.
Appreciate that.
And I hope a lot of folks will enjoy it, man. I know they will.
I hope so too.
Yeah. Well, shoot, Omar, man, it has been great having you on here, man, and having you share your story. Really do appreciate it. Great catching up with you again, and seeing that you're doing great things. Your book, your films. Hope to see your film again during the GI Film Festival or something like that. We'll definitely link up. I really do appreciate you coming on, man.
Well, thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it. Really, it means a lot.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's really good to meet you, man.
You too, John.
I was gonna say, yeah, definitely. I was gonna say we could hit stop and then hit start again and go down the nerd path and talk about cameras and lenses.
We can if you want. I got some time if you want.
Maybe we'll do that on another day.
Yeah, definitely. We can link up on another day for sure.
Set that up. Cool, man.
Awesome, Omar.
Shit.
All right, guys.
Thanks for having you, man. All right. Yeah, man, that was a good one, dude. That really was. It was good to catch up with Omar after not seeing him for so many years, and
Yep.
seeing where, what he's done over the years. I think he really did find that pot of gold that we're all looking for, right? Like, what do you really love to do, and what fulfills you? What doesn't feel like a job? What fulfills you and makes you feel like this is where I need to be? It's so hard to find, man. It really is. Um, but I think if you just kind of make a list, maybe, that's worked for me. Like, what do I really love to do? If I wasn't getting paid, what would I be doing right now?
Right.
And I have a number of things that I would be doing, but trying to get there and trying to maneuver that so I can still support the family and just everything all encompassing. That's the tricky part.
Yeah, it's a little chasm between jumping from the safety and security of a job and steady paycheck into something that
It is.
because usually that thing you want to do is outside of the scope of like regular work in a lot of cases. Maybe not, but I mean, even for this, right? This is a huge jump for both of us. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of investment in time and effort. But if I didn't get paid for something that I really want to do, this would be one of those things, right? And of course, we're not getting paid for this, so yeah, it's tough. That's why I kind of wanted to open it up and kind of dig into that a little bit because I feel like Omar's completely 100% right. Like you just got to go try things. You just try things, and even if it's like for a few weeks, a couple months, whatever. If it's interning, if it's volunteering, if you actually take a job and get paid for it, like just try stuff out. So you have a ton of time, like you have 168 hours in the week. If you don't spend all of those working and the other 30, 40, 50 hours, whatever, sleeping and eating, there's still a big chunk of time in there that you can optimize.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing too, is just trying things out and um, kind of interning or even doing things for free so you can try it out, see how it really works. Like I think you brought up a good point. Like you can go to college, they'll show you the fundamentals of it, but when you actually get on set, when you actually get in there, whatever it is, filmmaking, construction, whatever the heck it is, welding, until you actually get boots on the ground, hands on, like actually seeing the professionals do it firsthand, then you don't really know. You're not going to learn that stuff from a book. You might learn it from a YouTube channel, but until you get out there and get your hands dirty and actually do it, you're not really going to learn. So, yeah, get out there and try it. Especially on terminal leave. Like if you have skill bridge, that's cool. That's kind of like what I'm talking about, skill bridge.
Yep.
But if it doesn't work out, take that terminal leave, take maybe a few weeks of vacation, and then go try something that you really want to do. I want to learn how to play the guitar. Okay, well, let's get into finding a guitar instructor or something to that effect. Or I really want to be a welder. Okay, well, go volunteer your time to learn this, at some welding company who may be teaching this. There's a ton of veteran programs out there who will give you these things. Yeah, a ton of them. I mean, you go to any job fair and they're like, "Yeah, we'll give you the free training." They're all over the job fairs. Yeah, there's so many out there, man. But the thing is getting boots on the ground and learning it firsthand.
Yeah. And again, we try to bring as many of those folks in different organizations on as possible. I think the easiest way, if you're really, really, really searching, is just go to like Google or Bing or wherever you do your search. Probably even Chat GPT, I would say at this point, or Gemini, and just type in like the thing that you're thinking about doing, and then just add the word veteran to it and hit enter and see what comes up in the search results. I'm sure you're probably going to stumble across a lot of different organizations that we don't even know about. Like there's so many out there, so many different ones out there. And I feel like everybody's primed already with this whole kind of like, if you go to college and get the degree and you want to go that path, like you're already primed to learn and understand because you go through boot camp, right? And it's not like the stuff that you learn at boot camp directly carries over to your job once you get to your first duty station. It just doesn't. There's a ton of stuff you learn and some fundamentals and some basics, but once you get to your first duty station, you realize, oh, well, this is how the real world of the military actually works, right? So same kind of situation. We're all built for it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So you can find more on the Military Retirement Podcast on the Military Retirement Group on Facebook, militaryretirementpodcast.com, our new revamped website. We're on both, John and I are on LinkedIn, so you can find us there. What else do we got, John? I mean, let me see. The Green Logbook on YouTube, my own personal YouTube channel on life after the military. I don't know what else we got going on. We're kind of all over the place right now.
Yeah, well, we got basically all the socials. We don't actively get on the X. I get on with the Military Retirement Podcast on X. I get on there and post some stuff and retweet some stuff, re-X some stuff. But the other ones, man, not so much. But they're definitely out there. If you want to reach out through those channels, I'll definitely get the notifications from them. So if that's where you want to hang out on TikTok or Instagram or wherever, like the channels are definitely open and they're available. We just don't post a lot of stuff on there. We focus on YouTube and Facebook mainly, and LinkedIn. That's where we spend a lot of our time. So
that's right. And if you want to be a guest on the show, potentially a potential guest, shoot us an email, info@militaryretirementpodcast not at Gmail, info@militaryretirementpodcast.com. We just changed it. info@militaryretirementpodcast.com. Shoot us an email. Right. We'll talk, see about your background, see what you want to share on the podcast, and you can potentially be a guest on the show.
Yeah. Let me throw that banner up real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I thought we already had it in
all
there.
Good.
Hopefully we don't get a ton of spam.
All right. So just make sure you type in .com, not .com. We're all good.
Not .com. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're all good, man. No worries.
Oh, Lord have mercy. All right.
It's Sunday,
cool.
Man. It's Sunday. It's all good.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. So with that, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for staying with us. Listen to Omar's story. Pick up his book, Dust Settles, on Amazon. I shared the link in the comments. Great read, full of poems, short stories. And stay with us next week as we bring in our other guest and talk more about veteran and military transition.
That's right.
Thanks for being with us. All right, out here.
Good one. Out here.